By the time you finish your morning coffee, 9 separate psychological sieges have already begun, and you invited every one of them in.
I know how that sounds. Paranoid, maybe even ridiculous.
But stick with me, because at 7:03 this morning, the first siege launched, and the target was me. My name is Alex, and until today, I believed I chose my own wake-up time. Turns out, a UX team 3 time zones away chose it for me, and they chose it with surgical precision. They selected a ringtone called First Light, a gentle ascending arpeggio that feels innocent, almost serene. What I didn't know is that the note sequence is tuned to trigger a micro surge of dopamine exactly 0.8 seconds after the first sound wave hits the cochlea. Neuroimaging data, leaked from an internal beta, shows the spike appears while the subject is still in delta sleep, before conscious awareness kicks in. That means my brain was chemically rewarded for waking up before I even knew I had a choice. I stumbled to the bathroom, bare feet on cold tile, the melody still looping in my skull like a jingle from a childhood cereal commercial. The second siege was already waiting. My smart mirror sensed motion, woke its display, and greeted me by name, cheerful, familiar, intimate. Behind that greeting lurks a facial recognition algorithm trained on over 10 million faces. It measured my pupillary dilation, the microtension around my mouth, the redness in my sclera, and assigned me a morning compliance score of 87. That score is currency. It decides which ads I'll see before breakfast, which headlines will be bolded, and how aggressively my meditation app will nag me. I tried to rebel. I reached for the old-fashioned light switch, but the bulb flickered once, then defaulted to the same color temperature the mirror recommended. Even the air carried instructions. A discrete vent released a measured puff of bergamot lavender blend, proven in double-blind studies to reduce cortisol and increase suggestibility by 12%. I caught myself inhaling deeper, shoulders dropping, resistance dissolving before I could name it. That's siege number 3, olfactory anchoring. The fourth came from my wrist. My fitness tracker vibrated, a gentle, almost loving pulse, reminding me that 8,000 steps yesterday put me in the top 30% of users my age. Top 30%. Not great, not terrible. Just enough pride to nudge me toward the premium subscription that promises to push me into the top 20. And the fifth siege? That was silence. A deliberate, engineered silence. The house stayed quiet, so my brain would seek stimulation, would reach for the phone again. I obliged, thumb swiping before thought. A news alert waited. You won't believe what researchers discovered about morning people. The headline used the curiosity gap, an open loop my mind abhors. Click, scroll, like, share. Each micro interaction another brick in the wall they're building around my attention. By 7:17, I'd been nudged, primed, rewarded, and measured 5 distinct times, and I hadn't even poured the coffee yet. The kettle clicked off, another engineered sound, pitched to feel trustworthy, like a friend clearing their throat. I lifted it, steam curling around my wrist like a bracelet. That's when I noticed the mug. Same brand as always, but the handle was subtly thicker, weighted to encourage a firmer grip. Ergonomic data suggests a secure grip increases beverage satisfaction and brand loyalty by 9%. I tilted the kettle, dark liquid cascading, and somewhere inside my skull a tiny ledger updated. Pleasure logged, habit reinforced, siege number 6 complete. But the 7th siege was the quietest, and therefore the most dangerous. It came from within, a thought. Not mine, not entirely, whispered that if I skipped the cream today, I'd hit my macro goals by noon. The thought felt like initiative, like willpower. It was neither. It was a suggestion seeded by last night's targeted ad for a fasting app, still echoing in my hippocampus. I almost laughed at the absurdity until I realized I was already moving the creamer aside. My hand acted before conscious consent. Siege number 8 flashed across the smart speaker's mute LED, a brief pulse of white, so quick I almost missed it. That pulse meant the device had just pushed a firmware update, one that tightens voice print recognition and broadens keyword capture. It now listens for sighs, throat clears, even muttered curses. Everything I say before 8 a.m. becomes data, scored, bundled, sold to marketers, who will retarget me by noon. I stood there, mug steaming, heart thudding, counting the assaults like bruises. 9 sieges before breakfast, and I had only identified 8. The 9th was hiding in plain sight, and if I didn't find it before the first sip, the entire day would belong to them. I raised the rim closer, the aroma deepening, and then I heard it. A sub-bass frequency so low it was felt more than heard, pulsing at 60 beats per minute. The exact tempo used in focus studies to entrain heart rate and increase ad retention. My pulse synced before I could stop it. Siege number 9 was inside me now, conducting the rhythm of my blood. I lowered the mug, untouched, and stared into the black surface like it was a portal. They weren't coming for me. They never had to. I walked the path and opened every gate myself. But if one morning can be hacked this thoroughly, what happens when the siege lasts all day? Stay with me, because the next chapter begins at 7:22, when the commute itself becomes the battlefield. 7:22 clicks by on the dashboard clock, and I'm still half dreaming, fingertips twitching against the steering wheel like I never left the pillow. My phone lies face up on the passenger seat, screen dim, but I can feel it breathing. That's the first warning sign, isn't it? When an inanimate object starts to feel alive. I thumb the power button, and the feed erupts, brighter than sunrise. 9 posts, perfectly spaced between golden retriever puppies and blueberry muffins, each one engineered like a sniper round. The algorithm knows I skipped breakfast. It smells the low blood sugar. And just like that, the siege begins again. First post, a headline about layoffs at a company I interviewed with 3 years ago. My pupils flare exactly 0.3 of a second longer than normal. I only know because the eye tracking study said they would. The fear seeds itself, a cognitive Trojan horse trotting past my rational gatekeepers wearing the disguise of relevance. Second post, a friend's vacation shot. Turquoise water so vivid it hurts. Envy needles under the ribs. I don't even like the beach. But the mirror of want doesn't care what I like. It only cares what I lack. Third post, a political outrage bomb. I scroll faster, yet the after-image brands itself onto my mood like a cattle mark. My thumb keeps moving, puppeteered by invisible strings. Fourth post, a luxury watch, price tag hidden but implied. My wrist suddenly feels naked. I catch myself calculating credit limits. Madness, but the numbers feel reasonable when the mirror shows them back to me. Fifth post, a tear-jerking charity appeal. My throat tightens. I almost tap donate, then remember the gas bill. Shame pools like spilled coffee. Sixth post, a fitness influencer mid-squat. Sweat like diamonds. My slouch deepens. I flex abs that aren't there. The mirror laughs back, silent but merciless. Seventh post, a news alert about a crash on my route. Pulse spikes. I reroute before realizing the story is from yesterday. The fear was fresh, the danger imaginary. Eighth post, a meme mocking people exactly like me. I laugh too loudly, then glance around the empty car. The joke isn't funny, but the mirror insists it is. Ninth post, an ad for a mindfulness app, promising to fix everything above. The irony tastes metallic. They broke me. Now they're selling the glue. Between each post, the harmless dogs and muffins flicker past like innocent bystanders, their only crime being camouflage. The algorithm uses them as human shields. I exit the feed dizzy, as if I've been spun in circles. The road ahead looks the same, yet something in the rear view feels closer. My reflection stares back, pupils still dilated, and for the first time I notice the screen's glow has painted tiny squares across my eyes, like a barcode. That's the second Trojan horse, the belief that closing the app ends the invasion. I reach the office parking lot at 7:51, heart rate 20 beats higher than when I left home. I haven't spoken a single word aloud, yet I'm exhausted from arguing in my head with strangers. The siege is portable now. It rides shotgun in my skull. As I cut the engine, the phone buzzes once more. A push alert. You seemed interested in this. Below it, a headline about a citywide blackout scheduled for tonight. The mirror has moved from want to need, scarcity on demand. If I tap it, the next chapter begins in darkness. But do I? That decision, dear listener, is where the real siege starts. I did tap it. The blackout alert dissolved into the corner cafe's glowing menu, but the hunger it planted didn't fade. My pulse was already thumping when I stepped onto the sidewalk, and that's when the siege weaponized my morning coffee. The digital board above the cart pulsed like a heartbeat, red digits counting down, not minutes, but remaining cups. My brain registered the scarcity before my mouth could form the word decaf. I felt the 12-beat jump in my chest, 4 seconds flat, same rhythm as the subway rumbling under my shoes. The cart barista's eyes flicked to the counter, then to me, then to the screen. Micro expressions broadcasting micro panic like a silent auction. I didn't even like pumpkin spice, yet my hand reached for the wallet as if someone else were steering it. That's the FOMO pipeline. They don't sell coffee. They sell the fear of missing the coffee. The timer reset with every purchase, a rigged roulette wheel spinning faster than ethics. My reflection in the plexiglass looked pale, eyes wide like a lab rat who just learned the maze has no cheese, only sirens. I watched the stranger ahead of me hesitate, thumb hovering over Apple Pay, and I felt an ugly surge of triumph when the machine spat out his receipt. One left. Mine. The script playing in my head wasn't mine either. It was ghostwritten by every limited time offer I've ever scrolled past. The barista leaned in, voice low, conspiratorial. If you want the collector sleeve, it's today only. A paper cylinder printed with autumn leaves that will live in a landfill longer than any of us. I nodded before my prefrontal cortex could file a protest. Behind me, the line thickened, phones glowing like torches at a witch trial. Their screens mirrored the same countdown. 01 became 00 in a blink. The scarcity evaporated, replaced by fresh anticipation. The cart never truly empty, just creatively rationed. I stepped aside, cup scalding my palm, and noticed the man who'd been behind me, staring at the sold-out sign like he'd lost a loved one. His pupils were dilated, fight-or-flight chemistry still flooding his veins, even though the threat was pixels and marketing. I recognized the look. I was wearing it. The first sip tasted like panic sweetened with cinnamon. My phone buzzed again. Push alert from the cafe app. Missed the limited? Don't worry. Tomorrow's flavor drops at sunrise. The loop had already reset, the siege reloading while the last mouthful was still burning my tongue. I walked toward the office, steam trailing behind like white flags I never meant to wave. Somewhere inside my skull, the algorithmic mirror polished itself, ready for the next scarcity, the next countdown, the next tiny heartbreak disguised as breakfast. The elevator doors slid shut, and the screen inside greeted me with yet another ticking clock. Today only, free pastry with any drink after 4. I hadn't even finished the first lie yet, but the siege never waits for you to swallow. And that's when the lights flickered. Not the citywide blackout. Something smaller, closer. The elevator paused between floors, and in the sudden hush, I heard the drip of my unfinished latte hitting the carpet. Somewhere above, the pastry timer kept ticking, counting down to a temptation I might never reach. I pressed the emergency button, but my thumb hesitated. Because what if stepping out meant missing the deal? The siege had trapped me between floors and between hungers, and the next tactic was already warming up. The elevator dinged open onto the street like a mouth spitting me out, and I staggered into the morning glare, still tasting that phantom deal on my tongue. My phone buzzed once more. Someone else had grabbed the last blueberry scone, and I felt the hook yank again, even though I was already gone. I shook my head, told myself the siege was over for now, and stepped toward the crosswalk where fate had planted its next trap. A man stood dead center of the intersection, feet apart, one hand raised like Moses parting traffic. He wore a jacket the color of deep ocean, sharp epaulettes, and an emblem stitched above the breast pocket, some sort of stylized shield I swear I'd never seen. Still, the fabric looked official enough to make my stomach drop the way it does when a cop car appears in the rear view. He didn't speak, didn't need to. The raised hand was enough. Cars slowed, cyclists veered, and I felt my own feet edging backward off the curb without a conscious vote. My heel dipped into the bike lane, and somewhere in the distance, a bell rang out like an alarm clock for the brain. I watched myself obey, stunned at how quickly the circuitry fired. 0.7 seconds. That's the average hesitation before the insignia erases doubt. I had measured it once in a lab. Volunteers shown fake uniforms, real uniforms, no uniforms, and the amygdala lit up like a slot machine every single time the crest appeared. We're hardwired to kneel before symbols, even when the symbol is meaningless. The Navy man pivoted, scanning the crowd with calm ownership. His shoes were polished to mirror finish. I could see the distorted skyline in them, warped like a funhouse reflection of the world we trust. And here's the kicker. There was no badge beneath that crest, no nameplate, no radio clip to his shoulder. Just thread and confidence. A courier on a brakeless fixie hurtled toward the gap he'd created. The rider glanced up, saw the Navy arm, and jerked sideways so hard, the rear tire skidded in a black crescent. He mouthed a silent curse, but he yielded all the same, disappearing down a side street in a blur of resentment. I took another involuntary step back, heel now fully in the lane where buses exhale hot diesel. The authority echo wasn't loud. It never is. It's a whisper sewn into cotton, a frequency below language. And it was humming inside my chest like a second heartbeat. A woman beside me clutched her paper cup, eyes darting from the Navy man to the red "Don't Walk" sign still glowing like a stoplight for common sense. She wanted to move, but the arm hadn't dropped, so her feet stayed glued. We were marionettes with polyester strings. I forced myself to look away, scanning the street for context, any clue this guy was legit. No cruiser, no barricades, just the same Tuesday morning chaos, corralled by one confident silhouette. The absence of proof should have broken the spell, yet the spell held tighter, as if doubt itself were disrespectful. My phone vibrated again, a phantom scone still taunting me. I almost laughed at the timing, scarcity in one pocket, authority in the other, both tugging at different neurons. The siege was multi-threaded, simultaneous, choreographed like a ballet for puppets. The Navy man lowered his arm at last, and the crosswalk sign obediently flipped to white. Traffic lurched forward, bikes and buses and briefcases flowing around him like water around a stone. He stepped aside, job done, and melted into the crowd before I could ask his name, or who had embroidered that crest. I crossed with the others, pulse hammering, feeling the residue of obedience sticky on my skin. Halfway across, I glanced back. The Navy jacket was gone, but another figure had taken his place, this one in high-vis orange, waving a clipboard like a baton. The echo repeated, new uniform, same frequency, and the crowd adjusted its rhythm without missing a beat. I reached the far curb and stopped, heart racing, not from exertion, but from the realization that the siege never ends. It only changes costume. Somewhere between the fake badge and the next notification, the day had branded me again. A low whistle drifted from behind me, not quite human, more like wind through a vent. Turn around, Alex. I didn't want to, but the voice carried the same stitched-in authority as the emblem. My shoulder blades tingled with the certainty that if I looked, I'd see yet another uniform, another crest, another command. I took one step forward, then another, pretending the sidewalk was mine to command. The whistle came again, closer, threading the air like a fishing line. And I knew the next tactic wasn't waiting for lunch. It was right behind me, already measuring the space between obedience and revolt. I rounded the corner, the whistle still lodged in my ears like a burr, and stepped into the marble lobby of the Orion Tower. The scent of ozone from the revolving doors still clung to my coat. I told myself the worst was behind me. That authority needed a uniform, and I had just walked away from it. The elevator doors yawned open with a soft chime. 4 strangers already stood inside, shoulder to shoulder, staring at the back wall like it owed them money. I hesitated, then stepped in, my shoes squeaking on the brushed metal floor. There was no button panel. Instead, a single QR code sticker, no bigger than a postage stamp, glowed pale blue at eye level. The 4 heads tilted toward it in perfect synchrony, as if pulled by invisible strings. I watched their pupils bloom wide, black moons eclipsing the iris.
A soft ping echoed.
The stranger closest to me, a woman in a charcoal trench coat, lifted her phone. She didn't speak, didn't even glance at the rest of us. Her thumb hovered, then tapped. A green check mark flashed. A micro smile tugged the corner of her mouth, gone before it fully arrived. I felt my own lips twitch in sympathy, like we were sharing an inside joke I hadn't heard. The man beside her, navy suit and mirrored sunglasses, followed suit. Tap, check, micro smile. Then the teenage girl in rainbow headphones. Tap, check, micro smile. I counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, and realized mine was the fourth. The sticker seemed to pulse brighter, a tiny lighthouse in a steel box. I felt the bandwagon rolling straight at me, wheels made of human instinct. Nobody had spoken, yet the silence screamed louder than any pitch. My phone, warm in my pocket, vibrated once. A notification? Or just my imagination borrowing urgency from the air? I slipped it out, thumb already moving on muscle memory. The camera app opened by itself, framed the sticker dead center. No prompt, no ad copy, just the code and the promise hidden inside it. I told myself I'd scan it just to see. Classic last words. The lens aligned, a soft click. The elevator jolted upward without warning. The sticker vanished, leaving only clean steel. My screen bloomed with a thank you page. No price, no product, just a subscription confirmed in calming sans serif. I felt the others exhale together, a quiet communal sigh that smelled of coffee and ozone. Their shoulders relaxed, the invisible strings loosening. I checked the sender field. No company name, no unsubscribe link visible without scrolling. The address itself was a whisper, a confession. The girl's headphones crackled, someone else's playlist bleeding through. A soft chorus of voices, layered like a chant. I recognized the melody from a viral clip I'd watched at breakfast. The same hook, the same rise before the drop. My pulse synced to it, 4/4 time. I glanced at the others. Their footfalls tapped the same beat against the floor. Floor 14 lit up. The doors slid open onto an empty hallway, fluorescent tubes humming. Nobody moved. The silence grew teeth. I realized we were waiting for permission that would never be spoken. The code had already given it. My phone buzzed again, this time a calendar invite titled Lunch and Learn, location undisclosed, attendees undisclosed. I looked at the woman in the trench coat. A single tear, sweat, traced down her temple. She didn't wipe it away. The doors began to close. Instinct screamed to step out, to break the formation. My feet stayed planted, magnetized by the invisible rhythm. Floor 23 lit next. The elevator slowed, not stopping, just enough to let the fear pool. I felt the newsletter crawl deeper, past inbox filters, past rational thought, into the marrow where habits are born. The girl sniffed, wiped her nose with the back of her hand. The man adjusted his tie, the knot tightening like a noose. I caught my reflection in the mirrored panel. My pupils were wide too, twin black coins. The micro smile was there, ghosting my lips like it belonged. Floor 31. The elevator stopped, ding soft as a heartbeat. The four of us stepped out in perfect step, a silent platoon. I tasted copper on my tongue, adrenaline or suggestion. Who could tell anymore? At the far end waited a frosted glass door, backlit in warm gold. No sign, no handle, just the promise of whatever came after the pitch. My phone vibrated a third time. No sender, no app, just the letters burning white on black. I looked back. The elevator had vanished, replaced by seamless wall. The others kept walking, disappearing one by one through the glowing door. I hovered at the threshold, heart ricocheting off my ribs. Behind me, the corridor stretched empty, a long red throat. Ahead, the light pulsed, softer now, almost kind. I felt the weight of the invisible crowd pressing at my back, thousands of unseen subscribers nudging me forward. My thumb hovered over the phone, but there was no cancel button, only the fold, only the next floor. And somewhere, a timer I couldn't see was already counting down to chapter 6. I stepped out of the revolving door, and the cold air slapped me awake like an unpaid bar tab. My phone buzzed before my foot hit the sidewalk. A polite little tremor that somehow felt like a slap. Spam headline, all caps, harvested straight from the QR code I'd flashed without thinking. They already had my work address, my shoe size, the playlist I loop when I'm pretending to be productive. Time for the reckoning. I blinked, and a ghostly overlay flickered across my vision. 9 pulsing glyphs, each one a siege engine pointed at my prefrontal cortex. First, the alarm tone from the barista's timer, sharp, escalating, impossible to ignore. Second, the variable reward scroll that kept me swiping for a dopamine pellet I never quite tasted. Third, scarcity. Only 2 oat milk croissants left. Better grab both. Fourth, authority. The embroidered patch on a vest that looked official but wasn't. Fifth, social proof. The murmuring elevator crowd, nodding at a pitch none of us understood. Sixth, anchoring. The first price I saw that bent every later price around it, like light near a black hole. 7, commitment escalation. Just one more floor, just one more tap, just one more share. 8th, fear then relief. The countdown that hit 0 and instantly offered salvation for a small monthly fee. 9th, the Ben Franklin effect, the tiny favor I granted that now owned real estate in my skull. The overlay tallied the damage, a quiet scoreboard floating in the corner of my eye. I felt the weight of every trigger, a necklace of invisible barbs I'd volunteered to wear. My reflection in the shop window looked back at me, half aware, half resigned, like a man watching his own mugshot develop. Then the film froze, not the literal film, but the film of my morning, the real jamming on a single frame. Silence ballooned out until I could hear my own pulse arguing with the city traffic. A soft chime, almost kind. Clears throat. 5 seconds, the overlay whispered, to choose an exit key for each siege. 1. Disable all non-essential notifications before your feet touch the floor. 2. Set a scrolling budget in minutes, not miles. When the timer ends, the app closes. No parole. 3. Repeat the mantra. Abundance is staged. Every time you see only 3 left. 4. Look for the source, not the costume. Credentials can be rented by the hour. 5. Ask yourself who profits from the applause you're hearing. 6. Write your own anchor price on a sticky note and stick it to the screen. 7. Decide in advance what enough looks like, then walk when you hit it. 8. Notice the pattern. Threat, rescue, subscription. Then mute the soundtrack. 9. Flip the script. Do a favor for yourself first, then see if you still owe anyone else. The overlay dissolved like sugar in rain, leaving only the taste of possibility. I took one deliberate breath, then another, tasting freedom and exhaust in equal measure. My phone stayed dark, a quiet rectangle of glass instead of a loaded weapon. The next morning hadn't happened yet. It was still a blank page rolling through the typewriter of time, keys waiting for fingers that now knew the weight of each letter. Choose your keys. Choose your morning. Choose yourself. Because the siege only wins if you forget you hold the gate. And I, for one, am done forgetting.